is that a magic number, or I mean, what,
No.
would it be less if they only did 3 basic, alternatives, or?
It would be somewhat less, but it's not going to be. For instance, if they did 3 instead of 6, it's not going to be half the cost.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, and taking a look at the different alternatives, they're just going to do more schematic level type evaluations. The primary cost here is really the work that's needed to do the actual plans specifications for the repair and construction. But again, at this point, the assumption that this is built around is that the entire 1,800 linear feet of that channel will have to be repaired and replaced. But if that isn't the case, then we'll be back to you with a revised scope in contract to, for the appropriate, whatever the appropriate.
I wonder how much it would cost just for them to do that initial analysis, say, go out and test it to see if it's falling down or if it's gonna last another 10 years. I don't know. And then if they say, well, it is falling down, it's gonna fall down within the next year, then okay, come up with 3 to 5 scenarios for us to repair. I'm just following on, I mean, it seems like a lot of money up front to say not to exceed.
To read our reviews, to read the past reviews, and
Well,
then look through it, and then say, here's
But he
5
says they're gonna
answers.
do more than just a past review, read the past reviews. They're actually gonna go and do site testing, right?
No, there's not going to be any destructive testing. They're going to rely on the geotechnical information that was gathered 4 or 5 years ago, because the reality is that geotechnical information isn't going to change significantly. The other thing that they're going to be doing is a hydraulic analysis. I mean, of the channel. I mean, that channel is a flood control channel, so that's the other thing is we wanted to make sure that they rerun the hydraulics to make sure that the channel has the capacity for the current design flood.
Put water through it? Is that what they're?
No, it's a computer modeling.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because I didn't see that they said they were going to do that. In this discussion of number 1 through,
The design assumptions?
yeah, 1 through 24, which
Right.
says what they're going to do and what they're not going to do. But, okay, all right. Are you done?
Yeah, I'm done.
Jerry?
Yeah, just to be sure in my own mind here, Mike, the work product for the $92,000 is going to be an analysis of viable options that we might consider later on. They're gonna look at the structure under the road, is that, or the butts the road, is that what they're focusing on here?
Correct. Well, and then also, I mean, the entire channel, because the channel is also on the, I'm not sure if that's the east, south or east side, but on the, where it backs up to the Lindenwood area.
But they're not going to look under the road. They're just looking, they're going to walk through the channel and look. That's what it says.
They're going to make observations of distress, that visual
I'd like
observations
to get
of
this
distress.
contract. Sorry.
So they'll present you with, here are the viable options to fix whatever has to be fixed? Is that
Correct.
what you're expecting?
Correct.
And I guess to ask the same question that's been asked before about the materials testing, you say that the geotech work done back 4 or 5 years is okay. I'm certainly not an engineer, but it would seem like that Earth's forces or something, some things could have shifted. To think of concrete, just doing a visual inspection, I find that interesting.
Can we do an MRI or something on that,
Well, following up on Jerry's question, if I could, so, and I noticed that I forgot to ask that question, but since they referred to it that they're going to use that, and they're assuming we're going to give them that report, if in fact there was an error or there was a mistake made, they're grandfathering and we're kind of indemnifying them that if they give us a bad design or a bad recommendation, and it's based on that report, they can point to that report, they're free and clear. And so we're taking all the risk in this thing, and to me that just doesn't seem right. We're hiring them for their expertise, and we're taking all the risks. All they're doing, and I realize I'm simplifying, okay? they're walking through and they're reading the old reports, and they're gonna run some computer simulation, and we're gonna write them a check for up to $92,000, and I'm not really sure how we got the numbers, but okay.
Well, and again, I'm not trying to sit here and defend what they're gonna do in their price. But I wanna make sure that it's again, they're gonna be doing a 35% design level plan. And so that's much more than just going through and walking a channel and visually taking a look at what it looks like. With regards to using the geotechnical information that is 4 or 5 years old, it's their opinion and it's of our opinion that would be adequate. Now, if the other option is to basically increase the scope and have them do their own geotechnical investigations, if that's what the direction is, as your staff, we do not feel that it's necessary.
I had one more question here. There's a recommendation on page 26 that the budget contain an amount for contingencies. How will these incremental costs be managed, and what's your response to this recommendation, Mike?
On page 26.
That's the next to last page in their proposal. It's underneath, and it's in their proposal
For
about.
additional services.
So it's
26 of 27.
right before the project schedule. They actually wrote this in their proposal, that we would have extra money in there.
Well, yeah, they can write whatever they want.
That's how I read it.
So your answer, the recommendation is we just don't pay attention to it at this point?
Well, yeah, I mean, all they're saying, and all they're trying to say, which to me isn't a bad thing, is that is just to be clear on what's within their scope of work and what's not. And in fact, in some cases, we actually asked them to get more detail, for instance, on meetings. I mean, meetings could cost a lot of money, and so we wanted to be very clear, and we wanted them to write in the scope how many meetings this scope covered. But as far as them suggesting that the town have a contingency just in case, I mean, again, that's something that they're proposing. And, like everything, we're gonna do our best to monitor the scope and to not allow scope creep. But that's not to guarantee that there could be additional things. I mean, it's not unusual for these kinds of projects that we do the best we can to anticipate and to make sure that what we're providing you here is a full and comprehensive scope. But as we're, start doing the work, if we encounter things that we didn't anticipate, then we could be coming back to you with some out of scope change of work requests.
And Mr. Mayor, I think
Yeah.
the analogy that was given to me years ago by an engineer was it's like remodeling a house. It's a lot more risky to remodel a house than to just rip it down and start over because you don't know what's inside the walls. Same kind of thing here. And by the way, I share in the council's concern over the concept of putting a contingency in every contract. And some public works directors, not Mike, do
Previous
that.
ones.
Well, a lot of them do that because, especially where a city council like this one doesn't meet every month, there is a valid change order. Now it can stop things while they wait to come back and revise the contract. I've not always been a huge favor of that. There are some times where you can pretty much tell in advance a project is old and decrepit. Until you get into it, you won't know. And then it makes some sense to do that, but quite frankly, the fact that they put it in their proposal, I think that falls within the not to exceed number, and that's kind of up to Mike and his staff to determine that. To pop 92,000 or whatever the number is, they're gonna have to convince me that the change order makes sense too. And I'm not the world's easiest when it comes to contracts to revise them. Fletcher Ridge being a good example of one that offended me greatly. I'm still not over it, and as late as today, we're still working on resolving that. But I think Mike's got a good handle on this, and it is that kind of a situation where the reason they did a not to exceed, which by the way I applaud him for, because That is very rare in public works design, where usually they assume the worst, and that's what they think government ought to pay. And in this, at least there is an opportunity for us to come within the number.
Yeah, but I guess it's back to then the question, how did we come up with that number? That's a pretty specific number. What is it?
92,235.
Yeah, I'm surprised I didn't see any sense in there,
92,235.
being facetious, but, you know, how did you determine what that number was? They gave you labor rates?
Well,
You
yes, we
negotiated labor rates, I think, because one of the things is we're supposed to actually negotiate with these guys, and I don't know what type of
Where you
negotiation
can.
we
Yeah,
did.
where you can.
Yeah.
And it's very common, especially with design professionals and other professionals. Negotiation can be looking at items that they have proposed and say, take that out, now let's talk. But in terms of negotiating their hourly rate, when they have not a monopoly, but something close to, there aren't a whole lot of engineering firms that do, you know, these kinds of projects many times. And design, it's kind of like architects. Architects will look at you and say, that's my fee.
No, I
And
understand
so-
they can do that, but then under the QBS, you say, okay, next. And then you can go through all of them if the next guy isn't.
And when we've done that recently with an architect, and we could do it with an engineer, but I think you also have to start with the assumption that if you look at 3 successful engineers, they're all going to be very competitive in price. They're going to be, if not exactly the same, it's always shocking without price fixing how they can come up with a number that's within a couple of dollars of their competitors. So,
To kind of move ahead, do we want to ask staff to bring us back some more detail about how the number was arrived before we move on this? I mean, do you feel comfortable enough to?
Well, you know, I'm concerned about the number, especially the number currently and the number looking down. You know, I understand the procurement legislation and the laws that the general law city is gonna act underneath and all that. But you know, at the end of the day, even that process says there's a negotiation, and I am concerned that negotiation means they give us something and we put it into a council report, and there's not really any discussion. In fact, I'd like to see in future requests for very large deals that are perhaps gonna be 6 figures, that we understand where we started from and where we negotiated to. I think that that's a reasonable request, to know if staff is doing the good job. So you can get credit for doing the good job.
we might
Let's say
want to,
that.
we might want to talk about that, because a lot of that information they will deem proprietary.
Okay.
And they're not going to let us disclose that,
Okay.
and I wouldn't blame them. I mean, you know, Mr. Mayor, in your professional life, it'd be a little bit like somebody coming to you and saying, you're trying to sell me a product, and by the way, I want to know how much your company's paying you so we can negotiate your
Yes,
salary
it's called open
down.
book. It's called open book, and you
Well,
offer it to governments.
And and usually, it's been my experience, and I'll defer to Mike as well, usually, they won't talk about, you know, they'll give you their published rack rate, and they don't want you to, because we're public and have to disclose everything, they don't want to really have the results of those negotiations made too public, because when you do that, now there are other people that they have contracts with may feel like, yeah, I got cheated. And so it impacts their ability to do business with the same kind of firms in the future.
Okay.
And remember, the first step of this is we have to select the best qualified and then go to price. And so because of that, some of these people go, well, I might be best qualified 5 out of 6 times, and now because I was nice to the town of Atherton, I gotta be nice to 5 other people and I'm losing money. And so it makes it difficult for staff to,
Okay.
but we can talk about that, you know, when it comes up in the future. But as a policy, it might be problematic.
But they're gonna be exclusive on the whole thing. I mean, once we do this one contract, they're exclusive for doing the phase 2, because they're doing 35%, and who's gonna do so? I mean,
No,
it is
right.
a 205, potentially.
It is
Mr. Mayor?
theoretically the possible that they will have a leg up, but it doesn't mean that they'll get the
Yeah.
next.
Just to kind of cut to the chase a little bit, because I think that you're not going to be,
Satisfied.
okay, fine. No, I think, could we, if we had more detail on how that number, that price was derived, is that a possibility? Then maybe we'll feel more comfortable about it.
Well, absolutely. I mean, the detail is that what we have and what we used to negotiate with was basically a listing of people, hours by task, by company. And then how we came up with this number is that then their hourly rates were applied to those hours by task, by various types of people working on it.
So we don't have that detail in
No,
our
and,
report.
but we have, I mean, that's how, you know, we came to this price. It's, you know, again, there's really no magic to it. It's basically taking a look at all the tasks, taking a look at how many hours they were proposing that it was gonna take them, and feeling that that seems appropriate, that seems reasonable. But to be honest, we don't know exactly, and it's like everything, you know, when we manage this, you know, what we're managing to is the bottom line. Because I don't believe that it's reasonable. I mean, I've never seen where it's really been possible to hold everyone to their hours and their costs by task. It's much more difficult for them to estimate, you know, what each task is going to take. But as long as they're, you know, producing the end product within our not to exceed fee, that's what we're really managing against.
Okay, well, anyway, no,
We have to do public comment.
did you what? Yeah,
Public comment.
sure, that's fine.
Are you ready for that?
Yeah, because we're not ready to make a motion yet.
Right. Okay, any public comment? Seeing none, we'll close.
Well, then, okay.
I'm sorry.
He's gonna get a little snack over here, no.
Did you bring for everybody?
No. I don't know, I just feel that the as far as my feeling is, I think that I would feel a lot more comfortable, and so I'd like to make a motion that we continue this item until staff can bring back to council the justification for the fee in more detail. And since it doesn't seem like it's a critical path project, because it's been there, you know, another month won't make a difference.
Can we also have the proposed contract?
I was gonna suggest that, actually.
Yeah.
This was somewhat unique in that it jumped up real fast because of this not to exceed number. Usually there's a lot more time, but I think that would be a, fine, absolutely good idea.
I'd like to second that.
Fine.
Okay, ready to vote? Any other comments, Jerry?
Well, my only comment is, okay, you get the detail and you see the number of hours per task and so forth, what are you gonna do with it? I mean.
Well, it might make me feel warm and fuzzy, I don't know, but I, you know.
Well, I'd like to see the contract, because the devil's in the detail, and, you know, and of course, I like to read contracts, I do
It's a
that.
very sick thing, I have to tell
It
you.
really is.
And I
We
do like
gotta
to.
get over this,
I
you
will,
know.
I'll try.
I don't even like to read contracts.
So anyway, so I appreciate that, I appreciate all staff's work on it. You know, this was kind of a tweener because we didn't get the RFP in advance, you know, because of the procurement policy, and in the future, you know, we could have those comments in the RFP earlier, and we could have said, hey, can you get some more specificity in there, but anyway.
Okay, let's go.
So, okay, so let's have a vote, all in favor for the motion that Elizabeth made?
Aye.
Okay, so that one passes. So then we're going on, we're through with the consent items. And so we're moving down to item number 19. Okay, adopt the resolution for designating voting delegates and alternates for the meeting that's in San Diego.
As you know, the League of California Cities holds their annual meeting every September. You have the resolutions which we'll be voting on this September. The last 3 years, Atherton has not been present. but
Yes,
I
I
guess-
have.
Was it? Were you
Yeah.
there last year?
Maybe
Yeah, I think
I
so.
told you people went last year.
Well, I was incorrect. I apologize. But I have had interest from at least 2 of you in wanting to attend this year's conference, and it is budgeted for.
Yeah, I looked at the agenda, not to get into the resolutions yet, but I looked at the agenda and I thought a number of the items looked very, very promising. You know, changing government with mobile apps, some of the things that we're talking about, Facebook pages, you know, using technology to help streamline your processes, those type of things. So, and then there was a number of very interesting sessions on city finances, et cetera. So I thought it was, a lot of the items were very applicable to where we are and some of the things that we're talking about. And so I was going to try to make sure that my calendar permitted me to go. And I know that Elizabeth has also expressed some interest in going as well. Jerry, did you want to go as well?
No, I think it's appropriate the mayor and vice mayor go and look at our interest down there. And we've had discussions not too long ago about bringing back and sharing with the council any information that you do pick up in these work sessions that you think might be of interest and of value to the town. And you know, I would opt for some sort of a trip report from each of you for those items that you think would you know, add to our knowledge base here.
I agree, and I can tell you when Elizabeth went to the meeting in, I think it was January, she brought back a big notebook full of PowerPoints and shared that with me. I don't know if she shared it with other people, and going through it, there were a lot of handwritten notes in there, so I know she actually went to those sessions.
I think the whole council ought to be able to see that.
So, you know, the League of Cities does a really good job, and I think that we really should take advantage of what they offer for the council members. And every January they have the boot camp for new mayors and council members, and you know, I've gone 3 times, and I know that every time you always learn something, and you get an opportunity to meet with other council members from all over the state of California and get to understand what issues they are dealing with in their big cities and little cities all across the state of California, so it's really important. This September meeting has always been historically on a council meeting date, which has made it very difficult for council members to go to, and also it's always been on a date when I've been on a conference myself at the end of it, and now they're having it September 5th, so I said I'd love to go because that would work for me, and I think that it's important. There are some voting issues I think we need to struggle with.
Yeah, 5 resolutions.
Mm-hmm.
You want to take a position on those 5 resolutions, so that whoever is the voting delegate can go and vote on Atherton's behalf?
I don't care how they do.
You want to designate the voting delegate?
I think the mayor should be the voting delegate.
Yeah, I think
I'm-
Is that a motion?
Yes, I'd make a move that the mayor be the voting delegate for the League of Cities September 5th conference.
Well, and also the alternate should be Elizabeth then.
Right, okay, of course.
Second.
All right.
Do we need public comment yet?
Do we have any public comment on the town sending 2 people? And that the mayor and the vice mayor being the primary and alternate? Seeing none, we'll close public comment on that. Do we want to vote on that resolution?
Yes, I'll call for the question.
Okay,
All those in favor?
all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
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 Okay. So then we had there were 5 resolutions, right? You want to walk us through those?
I'd like to leave it up to your discretion.
Okay. So do you want to, we can vote that Elizabeth and I will get together and agree them?
Well, I just want to make one really public because there's, in most cases, I'm always very in favor of what the league recommends. However, they are recommending in the Environmental Quality Policy Committee, item number 4, that they adopt resolutions requesting a suspension of the implementation of some, if not all, of the regulations promulgated under the California Global Warming Solutions Act, AB 32. And I'm very much opposed to that, and I would like our council to take a position in opposition of that, because AB 32 has been California's groundbreaking climate legislation, and many of our climate resolutions that California has implemented has stemmed from AB 32. So.
And there was a vote on it, it was last November.
Right. Yes. So that's. I'd like to take a position in opposition to what the league is recommending.
And then also I would, I know we're not on the resolution number 1, which is the auditing and distribution of all costs associated from local governments and fees and assessments. I thought that the position that was being taken by the city of Glendora was punitive and overbearing.
Is this
They
the
had things. Yes.
Okay.
I thought that some of the things that they're doing, such as, they want to be able to rebill post-training, where, there's reimbursement for post-training. I don't think that all that should be passed on in taxes or in tickets, et cetera, et cetera. And I thought that the position that the Glendora was presenting was, as I said, a little punitive and could be far-reaching when the legislature would get a hold of it. And so I'd like to vote no on that, because I don't necessarily trust the legislature.
I'll second that also.
Do we have any comments from the public on any of those? Okay, so we would have a no on that resolution and the global.
Well, since both of you are in favor of the things,
We can
as
vote.
I said before,
Okay,
happy to.
Thank you.
Your
Okay.
all right, for our
discretion, yes.
Okay, fine.
So maybe we can meet for the rest of it. All right.
Okay, so, any other public comment on this? Seeing none? Seeing none, we have our reports, and Jerry, as always, has turned in a report. Thank you very much,
I have a
Jerry.
few words I'd like to add to my report.
Okay,
I did attend the mediation session in Sacramento on Monday of this week with high-speed rail and with other plaintiffs in the lawsuit. We met in mediator's office from about 10:30 to about 2:30, and when we left, we had reached no agreement on anything. I'll just say, remember, the elections are coming up in November. High-speed rail will be an issue on both the Senate and Assembly races. Be kind of interesting, because in both the Senate and Assembly races, there's one candidate that voted for high-speed rail, and the opposition candidate is indicating their opposition to high-speed rail. And you're going to have a report from the county library system, city manager, next
I hope to have it by
Next
next
meeting?
month.
next month, not next meeting. Next meeting is next week.
Next month.
Okay. That's it.
Okay. Any future agenda items?
Yeah. The passage of the city manager's job description, item 17 talks about the city manager exercising general supervision over town assets under the ownership, control, or justification or jurisdiction of the town. I believe that a future agenda item should be on whose books should the town's library donor funds reside. That this ought to be something that we agendize and discuss at a future meeting, county or town books.
Well, wouldn't that be part of the review that you're going to do and the presentation you're gonna
Action
do?
item.
And then an action item would out of that. I don't know whether or not we can take exception to what the JPA has passed, or if we have to take draconian measures,
Well,
I
we
don't
can't
know,
discuss
but I
it,
would
yeah.
expect that
Yeah.
you would.
I second your future agenda item.
One way or the other gets on the agenda.
Right,
After my report is finalized.
Right.
right, we can take a vote on it, and then we can definitely get on there.
Okay.
Call for a vote on it, I'm in favor of that.
Okay,
So it's got
Aye.
3 votes.
good. So that's a new agenda item.
Okay. Anything else? All right, any other public comments?
I think these meetings go so well when you have no public present. I know what you guys did to scare them off, but whoa.
We thought it was.
Look at this, 4-9.
There's no council members.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
So moved.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.